Hey everyone, I wanted to tell you a story today, and this story is of a woman named Flora MacDonald. Now, Flora was a Jacobite, which means she and her fellow Scotsmen wanted to see somebody of their people group, their culture, their ideals on the throne of England. This person at the time of Flora MacDonald was Bonnie Prince Charles. Now, Prince Charles led a group of Jacobites in a couple of small skirmishes, battles, you could say, and unfortunately was defeated. Now, when he was on the run from being defeated, he needed a way to escape the English who were hunting him down. And he met Flora and her husband, Alan MacDonald, or sorry, at her time it was her fiance, Alan MacDonald. And Flora decided, after hearing his story and knowing the background of what was going on at that time, she decided to help him escape. And she did this by dressing him up and disguising him as a maid who went by the name of Betty Burke. This was his identity. And she succeeded in helping him escape, which is the big event in her life, which made her famous and known for her courage and bravery as she helped this man escape. She took part in what she believed should happen in her world. Now, unfortunately, after leading him to safety, she was captured and she was imprisoned by the English. And during the time of her imprisonment, and later she was exonerated, in between these times in her life, her name spread in the community and she became somewhat famous in her world. And after she was exonerated, she and her husband, for multiple reasons, Alan was now her husband, MacDonald, she and he decided to leave the country and they made their way to North Carolina in the colonies. When she arrived, North Carolina was a place where many Scottish people had already settled, and her name and her reputation preceded her, and she was welcomed into the community of those people who had hopes and beliefs that were the same as hers, and they had heard what she had done for the prince, and they respected her. That's the big part of what she's known for. Now, after she and her husband got to North Carolina and settled down, they came at an unfortunate time. It was right at the eve of the Revolutionary War, and people were picking sides. Now, her husband, even though they had helped the prince escape, her husband was on commission from England. He was on commission from the crown, so that's where they were receiving their money. And because of this, they chose the side of the loyalists. Her husband was put into a small military group, and at the end of a battle, the result was of his capture. Because of this, Flora was then a focal point of attack, you could say, and she had to go into hiding. So it was kind of a role reversal thing. Instead of helping somebody else hide and escape, she then had to go into hiding so she wouldn't be attacked or captured again and have to be imprisoned like her husband was for being on the wrong side. Later, her husband was let go, and they decided to move back home to their home country with all the people they had already known growing up. But overall, her story is really summarized by this one quote. Dr. Samuel Johnson, the writer, said this. He says, Flora MacDonald, a name that will be mentioned in history, and if courage and fidelity be virtues, mentioned with honor, all referring to Flora. And this can be found on the website ncmuseumofhistory.org. You can also find the whole work written by Dr. Samuel Johnson on undiscoveredscotland.co. Now, side parallel track. Another famous woman in history, Betsy Ross, some of her legend is it's questioned. Betsy Ross, a lot of what we know from her has been passed down by oral tradition and later documented after it was told a few times. The same can be said of Flora. it is fact that Flora helped the prince escape, but there are details like some people romanticize her story. They say she and the prince fell in love. Some say that the bed sheet that the prince slept in while they were on the run, she was later wrapped in at her burial. Similarly, a couple details of Betsy Ross's story are also possibly romanticized. They're not proven firsthand with documentation, just by oral tradition. The fact that she had a meeting with George Washington might not actually be fact. It was just told later by her grandson. The idea and the taught aspect of her creating the very first flag is also oral tradition. Did Betsy Ross actually have the idea of a 5-point star, or was that somebody else's that they drew up and she created it that way? These different things, similarly, are not for sure, but we know the information by the stories handed down verbally. There is a good amount of history that is documented that way, but overall, the ideal and the American dreams, the patriotism, the hopes of being courageous like these people still live in us. Thank you.